Welcome back. So in this session, we're gonna move a little deeper. We're gonna go. I lobbed you the easy one first, right? Like we did welcome to the feast. We talked about food. We can all talk about food. Why? Because we have a lot of practice with food, and we have a lot of practice of talking about food. We all talk about food. We're comfortable with it. We know how to do it. And meals, and who was at the meal and who wasn't at the meal. It's something we're familiar with. And so we start easy. Again, we start with scales, right? I'm not going to ask you to tell your deepest, darkest secret at all anyway, but I'm definitely not going to start there. I always panic everyone. Okay, so Sarah, you're going to give us the slideshow, and we'll go to the next slide, the one after me with my friends. So I shared with you the story of an invitation that changed my life. And it wasn't necessarily a faith invitation, right, specifically, but I can tell you that that invitation has over time had great impact on my faith and has been a witness to the love of God in my life. And a lot of us have deconstructed or reconstructed our faith traditions. Most of us were either preachers' kids or missionaries' kids in the Southern Baptist tradition. Most of us are not now. Right? So there has been a lot of faith things, and Jesus has shown up and the Holy Spirit has moved in those relationships and because of those people. So even an invitation that does not maybe seem specifically attached to church can, in fact, change our lives and lead to transformation. So what we're going to do now is you're going to get back in your small groups, and we're just going to repeat the same format. Maybe this time share your story with someone different, right? So mix it up a little bit. You get to know someone else in your group a little bit more. And this is the question, and it's in your guide. It's activity 3. You'll do this in your small breakout rooms on Zoom as well. Recall an invitation that made an impact in your life. Now, for the type A people, it doesn't have to be the most important invitation you've ever had. It's okay to just pick one. It can be an invitation that you received or one that you offered. Sometimes we offer invitations that maybe we're nervous to offer, but we do it anyway, and something great happens. So did you receive or give the invitation? What was the invitation? And then because obviously copy and pasted, how did it impact your life? And does it still have a ripple effect? And that full question is in your guide. So the third part of this is, how did it affect your life? Okay, so we're going to break out into our groups. Again, you'll have 15 minutes and talk to someone new, and go team. We're waiting on them. We're going to force them back. It's so hard to leave the chats. There we go. Woohoo! All right, welcome back, everybody. I have to look at you here. I want to look at you here. But we're glad to have everyone back. We hope those were good conversations about invitation. And now we're going to do what we did before and just kind of talk about it as a larger group. We've got the microphone on the floor. And if you can use if you want to speak out loud on Zoom, just use the raised hand function if you know how to do that, and I'll call on you. Otherwise, you can stick it in the chat, your comments in the chat, and I'll do my best to monitor and read from there. Yeah, that one was a little bit shorter. Part of the problem is you're getting to know each other, and you have more to say, and those walls are getting broken down, and you're getting more relaxed, and so time is going to fly. And that's what happens when we begin this work. So how was it sharing stories of invitation? Thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down, thumbs up. We liked it. Thumbs up. Okay, good. I like that. What is, can you think of any, and this was in the handout, I don't know if your group got to it, but can you think of any stories of invitation found in Scripture? Or what's your favorite story of invitation found in Scripture? We've got some hands here. Feel free to raise hands on the screen. Yep, go ahead. And if you'll introduce yourself, that'll help us get to know each other. Or just say your name. Yep.
Susan from Providence, Rhode Island. Jesus saying, follow me.
There you go. All right, Dent.
My name is Dent from the Diocese of Chicago. Instantly, what popped to my mind was Nathaniel, come and see.
Come and see. All right, Jenny on Zoom. Go ahead and unmute and share with us.
So the wedding banquet.
The wedding banquet. Yes. Thank you. All right, anyone else? Oh, we got one over here in the room.
Jesus at the well, with the woman at the well, inviting her to go tell her people about his living water.
Yes. John added in the chat, same thing, the woman in the well, and it starts a cascade of invitations. Often one invitation leads to another invitation, to another invitation, to another invitation. Jenny, we'll finish this one with Jenny on Zoom.
I was thinking of Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus, come out of that tree and make me dinner and everyone else dinner too.
Yeah. Love that. Man, come on over. And I love how bold Jesus was. He didn't ask Zacchaeus if his house was clean, if the toilet was scrubbed, right? If he had gluten-free bread. He was like, I'm coming over and there's not much you can do about it, right? I'm coming over and we're going to get to know each other. When I was a young adult, newly married, I think maybe I was pregnant with my first child. I had a friend and you know, post-college, it can be hard to make adult friendships, right? Because it's just, how do you do that? And again, I had this lovely invitation from a girl, a lady I was getting to know in my church. It feels funny to call her a lady. We were like 25, right? Now looking back, I'm like, we were children. But we weren't. We were adults. We were married. We had mortgages. And she literally gave me a card that said, I'm really nervous about this, but will you be my friend? Please check yes or no. Right? I mean, she was a woman with a master's degree. But she was willing to be vulnerable and to put herself out there. And she's one of my best friends to this day. Again, we've been through thick and thin together. Again, it's that risk that we have to take sometimes to do those things that are uncomfortable. All right, Sarah, if you'll put the slideshow back up for us. So invitation is huge. It's something we really need to offer. And one of the questions, or the question I think for us then is, okay, if I'm going to make invitations, who am I inviting? What am I inviting them to, right? What is this invitation? Who needs to be invited? What's an invitation we can offer? Next slide. I propose that maybe we should consider people who are lonely. If we just want to walk out of here with some actual to-dos that we feel like, okay, that's something that's not like ethereal, I can do this thing. Who is lonely in your community? Okay. Before COVID, there are some staggering statistics. And this is pre-COVID. I don't know what the new numbers are. I would say they're probably more. In the last 50 years, the rates of loneliness have doubled in the United States. In the Western world, it's out of control. England, the UK, actually has a minister of loneliness on their government staff, whose whole job is to deal with loneliness in their country because it's so rampant. You say, okay, but what's loneliness have to do with anything? I mean, it's sad. We don't like people to be lonely, but what does it do? Loneliness affects not just our mental health, but our physical health. It affects our relationships. It affects our job productivity. It leads to things like depression and suicide. Next slide. Only around half of Americans have meaningful in-person social interactions, such as having an extended conversation with a friend or spending quality time with family on a daily basis. Pre-COVID, I would have said there are Millions of people who get up in the morning, get on a train, go to a job, sit in a cubicle, do their work, say hello to the people around them, maybe leave, get back on the train, pick up something to go home, sit on the couch, eat Netflix, watch Netflix, eat their dinner, go to bed, repeat over and over and over and over. Now they don't even leave the house. And the food comes to the door, and they don't even see the person who leaves the food on the door. They get a text that says the food's on your door. Right? No meaningful, I see you, you see me interactions. It's all functional. Generation Z, everybody wants young people in their church. You want to know about young people? They're the loneliest generation. The loneliest. Their rates of depression and suicide right now are off the charts. Our college kids, our high school kids, we had a junior high kid commit suicide in my town this week. Off the charts. And it's loneliness. They don't feel seen. They don't feel loved. They don't feel heard. They don't feel valued. Who cares if I'm here? Nobody sees me. I might as well just not be here. We can't say that social media is just a predictor. We can't just be like, get off your phone and connect with someone. We've all already talked about how hard it is to talk about some things, haven't we? Right? It's so hard to connect. In our creation story, in our very origin story, the only thing God says isn't good is that man was alone. It's the only thing. Everything else was great. Got it right the first time. The only thing that wasn't good is that Adam was the only human. And Adam was like walking around talking to God in the cool of the day, and it wasn't enough. God alone is not actually enough by God's own admission. We are plan A for experiencing God's love on the earth. And if Adam and Eve weren't enough to show us, then we get tribes. Right? God sets people in families, and then they argue. So he puts them in tribes and they argue, right? And they keep not getting it. So what does God do? God sends Jesus, a human, to a family. And then what does Jesus do? He gets friends, and they're knuckleheads, and they're annoying, and they drive him crazy. And he says, go out and make more friends. And then when he dies, does he die like a nice dignified death by himself where it's all about him? No, he dies in community. There's two other people next to him. And what's the last thing he does? His last act, pre-resurrection, is to make sure that John and his mother have each other. His last concern is for community. It is for eradicating aloneness. You guys don't need to be alone. This is horrible. You are suffering. You do not need to be alone. Right? When he comes back and he appears over and over. Like he's always appearing to people in community. He fixes breakfast on a beach in community. And then gives us to each other and says, take care of each other. I'm not always going to be here. Right? If there is one thing that I believe strongly that the church can do in this moment in time, it's eradicate aloneness. If our whole mission was just simply to work on aloneness, if we cared more about people not feeling alone than we did about our stained glass and our fair linens and what kind of music, and the pews and how many people. If no one's in the pews, but everyone in our town feels loved and seen, we're doing our job. They'll want to come to our pews because they're the people that love and see them, and then they'll want to be with them, right? But what's our goal with evangelism? Is it just to fill up our buildings? Is it just to have enough money in our endowments? Is it to save an institution? We don't serve the institution, we serve the movement of Jesus. And the movement of Jesus is meant to serve the institution, not the other way around, right? So we can eradicate aloneness. So as you begin to think about who can we make invitations to, who is lonely, in your town, in your community, in your church, on your rolls, in your neighborhoods? Do you have a college in your town? You have a lot of lonely people. Do you have a retirement community in your town? You have a lot of lonely people. Do you have single mothers or parents in your town? You have a lot of lonely people trying to do it all themselves. Do you have immigrants in your town? You have a lot of lonely people who don't understand the culture and all the ways we know how to get around and do things. You can look at your census data. You can look at data that the church provides to the General Convention site and look at all of that. You know, one of the questions our staff gets all the time is, we want to have a family church. We want to have a family church. Where are the families? Look at your data. Are they moving or leaving your town? If they're leaving your town, you're not going to have a family church. So who's here? Are they lonely? One of the statistics that I didn't put up here is that but pre-COVID, 43% of Americans ate dinner alone every night. What if you just started a eat dinner together ministry? If you have a church of 20 people, 20 households, what if each of those households committed to having dinner with someone that lives alone once a week or once a month? Okay, now you've gone to 40 households in community, sharing stories around a table. You have an invitation to offer, right? If you want to have a children's ministry in your church, but you don't have money for staff, and you do have a few kids and a few youth, does every adult know every child and every youth's name? And do they greet every child and every youth they see by name and see them as people? That's your first job for creating a children and a youth ministry.
So Jerusalem.
Yes.
This is one of the things I've encountered. What about COVID?
Yeah.
And the fears of people about getting together physically.
Yes, that's our and, right? Thank you. So there are going to be fears, and some things are going to have to wait. Some of this is just going to have to wait. Some of this is going to be 10 years journeys. Some of this is going to be 10-month journeys. We're just going to have to wait on some of it. You can do things like send cards. So people ask me a lot about young families. They're not showing up. They're done because they're exhausted, right? Don't send another young family an email. They're not going to open it. They can't. Between all the school, they can't. Kids can open mail. We're back to mail. I know we've heard of this thing, stamps. Mail is great because people will actually open mail. Kids love mail. Teenagers love mail. Older people love mail. Everybody likes a handwritten card, not just a form letter that got printed out. So those 20 families, 20 households, they can all send cards. They can do porch drive-bys. They can do waving. They can do, right? Like, we are creative. We've been at this now for 2 years. Someone has figured it out. We can do this. We have to be creative. I mean, look at all of us here and look at all of them there. Right? We're figuring it out. We have to want to. It has to be worth it. I mean, I think that's the heart of all of this, is it has to be worth it. We have to want to. So inviting people who are lonely, I think, is our next great mission field, and figuring that out. Okay. So you're like, okay, I invite them. Do I have all the stuff I need to invite someone to or have a conversation with? Or Sarah, we're gonna go to the next slide, and you can put the slides back up. Thank you. So do I have all the stuff? I love how everybody's been vulnerable today. One of the things I wanna say is it's okay to say, I don't know. If someone asks you a question about faith, that's still a conversation about faith. Even if you say, I don't know. Let me pull out my prayer book. Let me get back to you. Can we have Zoom coffee a week from now? And I'll have some ideas. I won't have the answer, but I'll have some ideas. Right? Or what do you think? I don't know the answer to that. It's okay. That's still a faith conversation. We have to let go of being certain. We have to let go of being the best. We have to let go of the idea that we have decided that it is awkward. And it is awkward, but also we hide behind that. So I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about pie. Who here likes pie? I love pie. I love pie more than cake. It's controversial, I know. So I live on a farm and we have miniature everything. So in terms of like people who actually have real farms, it's a miniature farm, it's 8 acres, right? So like city people think it's big and people who actually have farms think it's like a yard. And because it's 8 acres, we have miniature things. So we have miniature chickens called bantams as well as regular chickens. We have Nigerian dwarf goats. We have a miniature pig, which means he's the size of a Labrador. We have a miniature orchard, which means we have 3 fruit trees. It's a mini orchard, right? That's what it is. Yeah. 3. So we have an apple and 2 peach trees. Okay, and I make really good pie. I make my crust from scratch and it's real buttery and oh, it's so good, it's so good. So let's say that we decide to do this conference next year, but we're gonna do it in Arkansas, okay? We'll do it when it's cool, so November. So you guys are all gonna get in some buses because it's gonna be post-COVID by then, I claim it. And we're gonna get in the buses and y'all are gonna come down to the farm. And you're gonna get out of the farm, get out of the buses and you're gonna be tired because it's a really long way from here, trust me. And you're gonna get out and you're gonna stretch, you're gonna take your bio breaks, and then you're gonna come in the kitchen and where I've got my farm table and because Martha Stewart. And I'm just pulling pie out of the oven. I'm pulling these pies out, these peach pies that I've made. They're like all bubbly and gooey and the crust is just perfect. And you guys are tired and you sit down at the table and I put a slice of pie on a plate and I sit down and I start eating that pie and I'm like, tell me about your trip. How was your trip? Was your trip good? And I'm like eating that pie and I'm like moaning, the food moan. Right? And you're just looking at me like, that looks good. And I'm just eating away and you're just looking at me. And I keep eating. And you're like, what is she doing? I want some pie. Would that happen? The pie part? No. You would come. I would pull the pie out. I'd let it rest for a few minutes so it congeals properly. And then I would say, who wants pie? And then you could say a few things because you are an individual person with personhood. You could say to me, Jerusalem, I'm gluten-free and I have a feeling that thing is full of gluten. Could I just have a peach? And I would say, sure, here's a peach. Or you might say, I would like a taste. I'm not really a peach pie person. I'm more of an apple pie person, but it looks like you went to a lot of trouble. So can I taste your pie? I might like yours. You never know. I'll be like, of course, here, just take a little bit. Or you might be like, oh my God, I'm so hungry, give me all the pie. And I'd give you a big slab and I'd be like, do you want cheese on it? Yes or no? This says a lot about you as a person. Okay. Right? Those would be the options. I wouldn't sit there and eat pie and look at you and go, I don't know if I should offer it to them. They might be gluten intolerant and I don't want to offend them by offering them this pie. So good. Or I wouldn't be like, well, they might not like peach pie and I don't want to be a peach pie pusher and everybody think that I'm going to pressure them to eat pie. No, we would offer the pie. All we're talking about today is pie. Pie is something I love and I would like to offer it to you. And if you don't want any, that's okay. I would be like, oh, so what kind of pie do you like? Do you even like pie? Are you a cake person? And then we'd have a whole discussion about if you even like pie. Maybe you just want to taste and see the goodness of the pie. Right? You're like, I've never encountered this kind of pie before. I use shortening in my crust, but you seem to really like it, so okay, if I can sit next to you while I try this pie, you can show me how to eat it. You'll get the metaphor, right? right? Or I've just been waiting for someone to invite me to have some pie. Our red doors are beautiful and they are solid. People don't know what happens in here. There's a whole generation, talking to Thomas, whole generation's never been in churches, especially in this part of the country. People don't get married in churches anymore. They don't have funerals in churches anymore, right? They've never been in. This is like maybe just looks like a movie set, something they've seen on TV, but it has no resonance. Beyond that, one step further, then you have folks who don't even know what you're doing. Up, down, cross, not cross, bow, don't bow, liturgical aerobics. The first time I ever attended an Episcopal church, I was in my 20s, and I was at a church that had like one of these really long middle aisles. It had a rear-facing altar. I was sitting near the back, and I couldn't really see what was happening. And I was part of a tradition that only took communion once a quarter on a Sunday night when we could be sure that there weren't too many visitors. You wouldn't want them taking, anyway. So I couldn't see what was happening. I wasn't about to go up there. What if I did the wrong thing? Right? Was I supposed to kneel? Was my skirt too short to kneel? How was I supposed to put my hands out? Was it real wine? Was it real bread? Am I allowed? I wasn't about to. It was probably another decade before I went back. And you know how I started going back? I started going to a noonday, Wednesday in the middle of the workday, downtown where I worked at the time, service in a side chapel with homeless people. Because I could see and I could watch and take notes. And I was like, oh, you do this. Okay, and you can do this, or you can just do this, right? I could see it, I could watch it, I could experiment with it. I could figure it out. There was no pressure. Nobody was dressed fancy. People were asleep. And obviously I liked that because I thought, like, well, they're being loved. They're not being chastised, right? Like, this is a safe place. Can you imagine walking? I mean, have you walked, when's the last time you walked into some place new by yourself and didn't know any of the language or rituals? You didn't know where to sit. You didn't know how to dress, right? That's what we're talking about. Like, that's one of our barriers. We can't assume that if they wanted to be here, they would. We can't assume they know what goes on. We can't assume they know who we are. They're the ones with the pride flag. That's cool. They're the ones not with the pride flag. Okay. Right? Like, if that's all they don't know. And it takes invitation. It takes saying, hey, do you want to go to church with me for this thing we're doing? I'll sit by you and show you everything. And then it means having services where we would love it if every other person was whispering to the person next to them. Okay, there's a difference between Big C and Little C Catholic. Because they're giving instruction. They're inviting them into the process. They're helping them be familiar, just as familiar as they are with how to order their cheeseburger. Right? Like, what if those were the environments that we cultivated? Invitation is huge. Okay, we're going to stretch. We're going to take a 5-minute stretch again. I know it feels like we just had one. And if you cannot leave the room, don't worry. Maybe we'll do a 3-minute. We're just going to take a stretch for a minute, turn around, say hello. If you really need a bio break, take another bio break. Sarah, we will come back here at 11:07. And then we're going to do our last exercise, which we're going to do all together. If you're on Zoom, you're going to need pen and paper for this one. Oh, real quick before we do that. Sorry, y'all. I got off track. Sarah, can we do the next slide? I'm sorry. I just want to encourage you. I want to encourage you that you have everything you need for your pie. Okay? So ingredients for a Jesus-filled pie can be found in the baptismal covenant, right? These are all the things we have to share with people. Would you like to be a part? Would you like new life through Jesus? Would you like to have a life full of meaning? Would you like to know that you're beloved? Would you like to have community and fellowship, often around a table? Would you like to have a connection to the divine? How about wisdom of Scripture? How about bottomless forgiveness? How about good news that you can always share with anyone? How about love for your neighbors? Ability to see divine in anyone? How about dignity of yourself and to be able to see the dignity in other people? A passion for justice and peace? And what about always knowing that God's there to help you? These are all the ingredients of our pie that we have to share. And the way we share them is through all the things we've been doing today, right? Making invitations, telling stories. We tell stories about these things and we share them. Okay. So, as you know, we've been going a little bit deeper with every question, right? Sharing a little bit more, stretching those muscles a little bit. So what we're going to do now, we're going to do as a whole group instead of breaking into our small groups. So you should have a piece of paper and a writing utensil. I want you to take a minute and reflect on a pivotal moment in your life. Now, again, the type A people, this does not have to be the most pivotal moment in your life. But think of a pivotal moment, a moment when something shifted, changed, turned. It can be for the better, or it can be something that was hard. So it could be the birth of a child, or it could be a divorce. It could be getting a job. It could be getting cancer, right? It could be moving across the country. It could be having to go home and take care of your parents, your aging parents. Like, there's so many variables. And again, it doesn't matter which one you pick. You're not getting graded. I promise this will work. So we're just going to sit with that for just a minute while you think. You will be sharing these if that impacts which one you choose. Okay, so this is what you're going to do on the first side of your paper. See my lovely drawing? Should have been an artist. You're going to divide your paper into half. Number 1 at the top, number 2 in the middle. And then on the first half, you're going to write down a few words or phrases that describe that season. Now write it kind of big, like try to use the whole top half. But just write down a few things that describe that. So you'd write something like, got divorced, moved to Ohio, right? Like, left dream job, take care of aging parents. Thought I couldn't have a kid, have 5, something like that. Okay, when you get done with number 1, oh, and you're supposed to write seek at the top of that, sorry. So you write seek, then you write the thing, you can go back and just kind of scribble it in the corner. Under number 2, you write name. Write down the name of the person or persons who walked through that season or event with you. So think about, who was it that brought you casseroles, or who was it that let you like complain on the phone for hours at a time because you just needed to vent, who packed boxes for you. When you feel like you've completed 1 and 2, turn your paper over. On the back side, write the word celebrate at the top. And then I want you to write all the attributes of God that you can think of that that person or those people exhibited during that time. So for instance, were they long-suffering because they listened to you complain for hours and hours? Did they show love unconditional? Did they laugh with you? Did they lament with you? Were they kind, gentle? Were they fierce on your behalf? Did they go to bat for you? Advocate for you? Did they let you rest? Okay, so what we're going to do in just a second, I'm going to give these instructions while a few people finish, is we're going to stand up as you're able. Some people, if you need to stay seated, that's fine. Others will come to you. We're going to stand up. We're going to remain silent. We're not going to talk at all. And we're going to witness each other's stories, okay? So for instance, you'll walk up to someone and you'll show them side 1, let them read it. And you'll show them your backside with the celebrate, let them read it. They'll give you a smile or a thumbs up or, no words. I know it's hard. But remember, we don't have to have all the answers, right? So we just smile and thumbs up and then repeat. The other person will show you theirs. And then you'll move about the room until you've witnessed everyone's stories. Yeah, one more. There we go. Congratulations. You just shared a God story. Woohoo, you did it. You shared pie. So I told you had the ingredients, right? Now you have the recipe. Seek, name, celebrate. It's the recipe for figuring out how to share all this goodness we have. The current working definition of evangelism in the Episcopal Church is this. Evangelism is the spiritual practice by which we seek, name, and celebrate Jesus' loving presence in the stories of all people, and then invite everyone to more. And I've got some cards that I'll hand out to you at the end of the day that have more exercises similar to the ones we've been doing, but ones that are meant to be done in churches that you can do during coffee hour. Once we get back to that, you can do over Zoom now, right? The way they've been doing these is in breakout rooms. They've been sent to breakout rooms of 4 people. And that's how they've been doing the story sharing with each other. They've done all the same exercises we are doing. So we can do these things, right? We can do these things even online. But what you did was you sought a moment, something that was an event, a story in your life. And then you named, in this instance, the people that were there for you, right? And then we celebrated how God used those people in our lives. How was sharing these stories? Was it okay? Did you enjoy it? Based on the volume in the room, I'd say you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it on Zoom. We told some really good stories today. And they don't always have to be about big pivotal moments, right? The other day, I was driving to visit an old priest of mine and have lunch, and I was at this intersection, and the light, was red, thank goodness, because there was this old man and this older gentleman who was steering the van, and this younger gentleman and another person trying to push the van through the intersection. And it was one of this busy street, and it was like the light was going to change green at any moment, and my heart. And all of a sudden, these other cars just stopped, these other trucks, and these other guys got out because it kind of stalled. Like they kind of had it rolling, and then it stopped dead center of this intersection. And these other guys, and they parked on either side of the street, and they ran to help. And I noticed that one of the people who had been pushing the van, who I hadn't seen, was this older gentleman's older wife. She had been helping, and she, so they relieved her, and they got that van across the street, and then other people were stopping to help them figure out what to do with it, right? And I was like, wow, that's so cool. That's love. In this world right now that just seems so fractured, and also these older people, they were of another ethnicity, right? They were people of color here in this very white town, and they seemed to be, probably financially challenged, right? And here are these other people, these, kind of burly, kind of typical white bros, all stopped to help. And that just looked like God to me. Now, I just used the Seek, Name, Celebrate recipe to tell that story. We can do that every day. We can mine our whole day, at the end of the day, in the middle of the day, our weeks. Today at the grocery store, I saw this kid. He was just like goth. It's all back, the black and the hair. And he looked scary, but then he helped this precious woman get stuff from the top shelf and was so sweet. That looked like God to me. I want to tell somebody about that. We text our friend and say, guess what I saw today in the middle of the street? I put it on Facebook. Guess where I saw God show up today in this most random place? Where did you see? This recipe is also a way to invite other people to share their stories with us. Tell me about a moment in your life, right, that really changed your life. Tell me about an invitation that changed your life. Tell me about your favorite meal. Who was with you at that meal? How did you feel loved? And if they're not comfortable with God language, use love language. And then when they ask you, you use the God language. When they say, okay, well, tell me about a time. And then you tell them, but you say, and I felt God's presence, which is who I think love comes from, right? This is how we do that work. Next slide. You all have pie to share, right? Now you have the ingredients, your baptismal covenant, your own life, and you have the recipe. And I promise you have opportunities. You're going to have opportunities when you go eat at restaurants and when you wait in line places and on social media and at church and at the farmer's market. There's all kinds. There's a company called Beekman 1805 that sells a bunch of stuff online, but I love this. They have what are called the Good Neighbor pie plates. And they're these reusable but pass-alongable pie plates that you can get and make pie and then give them to people. You're not giving away like your nice pie dish, right? But it's a little bit nicer than just the tinfoil. And it says in there to continue to carry it on, right? Like there's a card with it that says, please pass this pie plate on. We honor the dignity of our neighbors, our friends, and our family, and even the stranger when we invite them to taste and see the goodness of God for themselves. One of those things that we talked about is one of the things people push back on is that whole thing about, well, I don't want to push my faith on anyone. There's ways that you can do it that are pushing your faith, right? And especially if it's somebody of a different faith, we don't want to do that. But my faith being, okay, in Arkansas, we have great interfaith work, which might be shocking, but we do. But unfortunately, sometimes people know more about their neighbor's faith than they do their own faith. They're more comfortable sharing the things about their neighbor's faith than their own faith. They want to lift up and highlight their neighbor's faith and keep theirs hidden. That doesn't honor the dignity of our neighbors, because when we don't bring our full selves to a relationship, we're patronizing. Right? If I'm not going to be honest about who I am and where my source of love comes from, then I'm hiding a part of myself. And there is a way to do that that says, I honor you and how your faith. And I think, tell me what you love about your faith. I'm going to tell you what I love about mine. And it's a relationship. It's a conversation. But when we decide for people that they don't want pie before asking them, we take away their selfhood. We don't give them the opportunity to choose for themselves, yes or no, right? We've made up the decision for them. Well, they don't look like they like pie. They don't look like church people. I bet if they wanted to, they'd come. I would never, we'd have to be pretty good friends for me to sit at your table and watch you eat and ask for some pie if you didn't offer it. We'd have to be really good friends, right? We have to make the invitations, but we have everything we need to do that. And it really is a way to honor the dignity of everyone. Next slide. So I'm closing this portion this morning, and then we'll do some Q&A and hand out some things. Just a reminder, everybody, we had pie night one night at our small group, back pre-COVID. Everyone wants to be wanted. They might want to say no, but they want to be wanted. And if we can make people feel wanted, what a gift. What a gift that is to say, someone wants me and wants to be around me, not for what I do for them or how much money I have or don't have or because I look good in their statistics. They want me. That's what transforms the world. That's what changes things. That is what is good news to people. Billy, do you mind coming up here and handing some stuff out for me and maybe one other person? I've just got some resources I brought along to share. For those of you at home, you can find all of these on the website. If you go to episcopalchurch.org and click on the evangelism button, these are just our Evangelism 101. Sarah, you can take us off the slideshow and just show all the faces. This is just some of our information that we have available. If you're interested in doing evangelism trainings back in your context, this is my little commercial part. We have an online resource called Embracing Evangelism. It's a 6-session video series that you can do in person or over Zoom. There's a little webinar that teaches you how to do it on Zoom. It's very much like what we've done today. You guys have gotten a taste of it. It goes further, but it's some of the same exercises. Welcome to the feast, an invitation. It's led by myself and Stephanie Spellers, David Gortner, Nancy Frausto, and Jeremy Tackett. You get to watch participants do things like y'all have done. So it's free. It will be in Spanish in November. It's in English only right now, but it'll be in Spanish in November. If you need me for anything, you can always reach out. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to Zoom in to give pep talks to vestries and individual congregations or evangelism teams. Happy to do that anytime. That's the beauty of Zoom, is that I can't physically be everywhere, but I can digitally be most places. So thank y'all. Let's have a good break and a good lunch.